Hello and welcome to the Veloccino Cycling Podcast, where the best stories have not yet been written. Well, you join us in a month where there's some pretty dark times happening across Ukraine at the moment. And although this isn't a political podcast or anything for us to get into, we're obviously here to give you some lighter entertainment. We didn't feel we could really continue the podcast without at least making the statement that, hey, look, war is bad. We do hope that peace comes to that country and that part of the world soon. There are loads of other outlets which will give you much more coverage and detailed analysis of that situation, which we are also watching ourselves. But for now, let's take a break from that and let's try and give you some entertainment, some inspiration, and maybe some education even this week as we talk about traveling with your bike and in particular traveling around Europe. So this is almost going to be like a bit of a holiday show, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hollybobs. Holiday advice. I feel perhaps we should restart this. We should say, hello and welcome to the holiday special episode of Veloccino Cycling Podcast.
I feel like you need the waves or something in the background there.
Yeah, and some sort of and perhaps we should, that little hula music in the background.
I feel slightly disappointed that Niels didn't get the cocktails out.
I want to sing the somewhere.
No, we don't. We need to sing it.
The rainbow.
I don't know, mate. Is that are your jeans all right?
It was tight.
Yeah. Now the reason why we're talking about this is that Niels has selflessly in the aim of making our podcast even better, taking himself off on holiday for a week. And in doing so, genuinely whilst he's there, has done a little bit of touring around, gathered some extra information. I think he's called it research, so we're going to write it off as some sort of tax dodge, really, if I'm honest. And we thought we'd just have a chat about some top tips of travelling with your bike if you are planning that for this summer.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So basically, I just came back from Mallorca, where I spent some time with my family. I've been to Mallorca now about 15 times, I think, over the last couple of years. So I feel I have a bit of something to say, what I learned, what I would avoid, what I can encourage you to do, but also, there's always options, like whatever works best for you.
Yeah, Lanzarote.
No! No, you don't want to go there because it's a volcano island, and also I think it's very windy. Also, it's a longer flight.
Okay, well, look, we're already into the travel advice. Broadly, Gem, it looks like you are wrong. You were wrong.
Yeah, get out.
So look, let's start, because Gem, have you travelled much with your bike before?
None at all, no. I've been to Lanzarote
Luton.
once, but I didn't take my bike with me.
Yeah, Luton?
I've travelled to lots of places, I just haven't taken my bike.
Mm.
Yeah.
Why?
I thought it was... I thought it was tricky, to be honest. I do actually also have a bike box. I've just never used it.
Fantastic.
Brand new, it's in my garage.
It is actually super simple if you get the mechanics all behind that. So I will talk about it later.
When I'm on holiday, this is going to sound bad. When I'm on holiday, I like to not ride my bike some of the time.
Yeah, okay, but that's a topical. Well, that's a typical holiday.
That's
then.
Holidays, okay.
Right, like a lot of people are considering going to ride abroad to get a bit of sunshine, enjoy a bit of better road quality, enjoy a little bit of potentially better treatment on the road. Also in Spain, not necessarily by Mallorca, that's more like in the Barcelona area. They've built a lot of newer motorways where they still have the old roads going parallel to them. So you can go like actually miles and miles without almost seeing a car.
Okay. Well, I'm kind of inspired then, I suppose. I could start to take my bike abroad.
So let's start at the basics. Let's start at the beginning. Jem talked about not wanting to take a bike. I mean, I've taken a bike a few times. But when you get out there, I mean, we've interviewed bike shop owners as well, and there's some really good bikes that you can hire there, and with Bike Fit and all the rest of it, they will make all sorts of adjustments to it for you. So in your experience, is it better easier to take a bike or take your own, or get one when you're out there?
Well, that always depends a little bit on your situation, on your personal situation. As an example, and like this time when we went, we decided to hire a bike just because for the sole reason we went out with a family and with our 2 kids. So we just didn't want to add another obstacle, another challenge to put in the rental car, to have to carry around, to have to look out for. So in this situation, we hired a bike, and rightly so. You usually, when you do some research, you can get some really good bikes. Often you think like, okay, get a rental bike. It will be like an old aluminium banger. That's actually not the case. Most of the rental shops have agreements with certain specific brands, and you will usually get not necessarily top of the range bike. There's like different price categories most of the time, but especially when you go now, like in February, when not many people travel, in the shop where I hired my bike, I actually got the top of the range bike, although I booked the cheapest just because there was no one using them.
And so just to give us an idea of that, so how much did it cost to hire a bike for a few days? Because I totally get the idea that, like, if you're going for a longer period and you've got a really expensive bike that you really love, you might want to take it. But particularly for like a shorter period, or if, like you say, you've got more, I was going to say more luggage, but that's not a nice way to talk about your family. But, if you've got more stuff you've got to take through. So what kind of bike did you get, and how much did it cost you?
So I got like a Cannondale Synapse.
One of my favourite bikes.
Oh, yeah, it's like full carbon,
really nicely.
Ultegra, and I spent £100 for 4 days, which I thought
That's really good.
That's really good.
fully insured. Plus, I didn't have to bring my pedals, because sometimes when you hire a bike abroad, you have to bring your own pedals, which can sometimes be a bit of a pain in the bottom, because you have to take your pedals off at home, and then, it's just another fuff. So in this situation, I just arrived there, the bike was ready, and I could go. And
did you give them any sort of bike geometry, or did they have that? For instance, if you've done a bike fit, can you give them roughly how many spaces to put, and like roughly handlebar heights and stuff?
Yeah, usually you can send your details over and they will take care of this. However, in this situation, because my wife Hannah and I, we have the same frame geometry, or not frame geometry, but frame height. So we just went like for a 54 bike, and then said we do everything else ourselves, because we wanted to share between us.
The bike. Okay.
Yeah, because traveling with 2 toddlers, you have to make do. We just wanted to go cycling when they were sleeping, when they were eating and stuff, that we were like sharing it between us. So in this situation, it didn't play a part for us, but usually you can do that. I also want to highlight, most of the bike shops are really good. Like, as an example, in this time, I went with a shop that I haven't used before. I've been there once to pump my tires in the past, but they looked good. So
you went there to pump your tires? Do you really pump your tires? Because saying you went to pump your tires, it sounds a bit like a euphemism for something.
No. But this is
like
also something.
Dropping your kids off at the pool.
No. This is something you have to take into consideration as well.
What, pumping your tires?
Yes, because if you travel with your bike, you have to take the air out of your tubes and of your tires before you board it. And when you put your bike back together, most people forget the track pump.
That's a good. I don't think I'd forget the track pump. I forget to take the air out before I left. I'm glad you told me that.
Yeah, so this is something you need to know.
I don't think I would have done that.
Yeah, I forgot it in the past. I got told off. So this is why I know now.
Oh, I was thinking that's the least of your worries. I was thinking they'd explode in the hold.
Yeah, that's what can happen, and you don't want this to happen.
No, okay. and also I think I believe, although airlines say you don't always have to do this, because some of them have pressurized holds, but it's always, I just think it's probably just best practice to do it, because you just never know. And if you're taking a mountain bike, probably the same with the forks and the air can as well.
Potentially, I don't know. I never took my mountain bike with me, so all the holidays that I've done so far with a bike were always road bike. So, but this is where I knew the shop from, and I want to give them a go, because at that time of the year I also wasn't sure which shops are open, and I saw that this shop is very close to the apartment that we had. So I reached out to them on Instagram, and they said, like, send us an email, and I've done that, and they were really good. Then they asked me for my phone number, so they got in touch with me via WhatsApp when I was on the island to ask exactly when I was there, to not arrive there and the bike is not ready or whatever. The service, I have to say, was really good. I will put the link in the description of the shop. It's called Bemont Bikes. And it's not sponsored. I didn't get any benefit of this. And it
nice
was really good.
That they were good and provided a good service to you.
Yeah, so that was really good.
So By the way, for everyone watching, if they're thinking that I'm actually on my phone and just checking like rugby schools or something like that, I'm not. We do actually have a list of a rough plan of some questions. I know, Jem's looking at me like, what, we've organised?
Oh my
you got
goodness
some
gracious.
questions, some ideas? I know, it's crazy, isn't it? It'll never stick. So the next thing that we'd put on the list was like, okay, so that makes sense with the bike and getting there. And the next thing is where to stay. Because I know myself, I've been lucky enough to stay at one point in a really nice ski chalet, and that was fantastic. And of course, you've got the ski room there, so everything's set up really to be able to put bikes in, nice and secure. But obviously, if you're going somewhere where it's a bit more of a holiday place, you've got the choice. Great if you can get a house and there's enough of you to go there, or an apartment. But often, like, do you go for a hotel, apartment? What does it mean in terms of keeping your bike safe?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. So far, I've tried a couple of hotels before, not just in Mallorca, also in other places. But the majority of times, we have decided to take an apartment just for the ease of use, because we had it before, as an example, that we had to go, in order to enter our rooms, we had to go through the restaurant, which can
coming through. Click clack, click clack, click clack.
Exactly, which can be sometimes a little bit annoying. Also, often a lot of hotels say they have a safe and secure space for your bike, but once you see them, you don't want to leave the bike there.
It's neither safe nor secure.
Exactly, and but they often insist that you leave your bike there. So it can sometimes be a problem to take your bike onto your room, especially, not especially, but when you have a rental bike, you don't want it to be stolen because you will be in all sorts of trouble, although you have an insurance, but you just don't want to be in that situation. The other thing is, if you bring your own bike, you want to have your bike with you. And then there's the next thing. If the hotel room is a little bit small, it can potentially be a bit of a problem with storing your bike box. If you don't have a balcony, the bike box is in the middle of the room, it can be a problem. Especially if it's like more of you, if it's like 2 or 3 of you sharing one room.
Yeah. Okay, so if you are on a budget, and you're better off getting probably a slightly more rubbish apartment than going for a hotel.
I think so. For me, it was usually better, because also this episode, especially, and I mentioned that I went often to Mallorca, we often go to the area called Porto de Alcudia, which is in the north, very close to the Tramontana Mountains. And the good thing there is they have a massive Lidl. Again, not sponsored, just for you to know, if you're in the UK, you will know Lidl.
If anyone hasn't noticed, this podcast is not sponsored by Lidl.
No, but
we are sponsored by the middle aisle of Lidl.
Just imagine.
Yeah. So that's why this week we have all got chainsaws and ski gear.
But anyhow, so which is a massive benefit, because if you don't speak Spanish, you will still get the same product, or most of the products that you would get in the UK or in Germany as well. And often these products have like multiple languages on the rear to explain what they actually are. So that can be helpful. Also, depending on what budget you're on, it can make your life a little bit cheaper, because you get just your pasta, your nuts, or whatever you want to not carry around, but like bars, bananas and stuff. And
We're on the ride. Niels is like, just some pasta.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, do you want some nuts? Brilliant.
I wasn't going to go. I would eat. Anyway.
So yeah, that can be helpful, and especially when you have an apartment, this can be like super, super helpful. Also, if you go off season, especially now after COVID, not that you want to exploit it, however, we realized a lot of apartments offer really, really good deals because they just want to rent them out.
Yeah, okay.
So
no, it's good. It's not exploiting. We want to do. We want to bring the business back to the tourism and the trade. So it's not exploiting at all. It's
100%.
And so just separate to the bikes and the kind of the travel program element of it. What was it like riding out there? Because I've never been out there for riding. I keep hearing it's fantastic. I mean, you posted a couple of quick clips on the Instagram, which look really good. But what was the riding terrain like?
It's fantastic. Like, also a fun fact, as most of our listeners might know, our veloccino jersey is dark grey, blackish, white and red. And this is actually a testament, or like a reference, to the cycle path from Alcudia to Pollenza, which is one of my most favorite cycle routes
I
ever.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
You see.
Yeah, I will show you some photos later. So basically, on the right, it was always red with a little white strip and then the road. And this basically gave me the inspiration why we used the color for the jersey. However, in the meantime, most of it was changed to blue because the half Ironman, which is one of the biggest half Ironmans in the world, was for a long time sponsored by Thomas Cook. So they basically resurfaced the cycleway from Alcudia to Pollenza and colored it blue. So from that time still, the road quality is fantastic on this strip. And then also on top of it, just because of the milder climate or whatever reason, somebody told me once that it spoke about the climate, the road quality is immaculate.
Maybe it was because they don't have to put all the salt and stuff on it that we do.
Yeah,
and I don't know. I was going to say something sound really geeky then, because the climate doesn't change so much. The roads don't. It's going to sound terrible. Like expand and contract, so you don't get all the potholes and everything in them.
So the water doesn't form to ice and expand underneath.
Yeah, and also there's
to cause holes.
But also there are less lorries. This is another thing, right? And less cars in general. So basically, when you get out of another reason why I like to stay in Port Alcudia is because before you hit the mountains, you have to go for about 20-25 minutes on relatively flats, which I personally like to get your mindset ready, warmed up. Yeah. And also on the way down, back, it's relatively relaxed. There's at least no hill up.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
Okay, yeah. Actually, do you know what? That's actually a really good point on a tip for people who are thinking about travelling. Because I've been out and I've been in, where have I stayed? I've stayed in Morzine and Leger. And that was fantastic. Absolutely loved it. But I stayed further up the mountain, and it didn't mean at the end of every day after a great, fantastic ride, and unfortunately it wasn't close enough to a ski lift. I had to then ride up for about, it was probably only 3 kilometres, but 3 kilometres at the end of a day on a downhill bike. It was awful. But I guess that's another top tip is to think about where you're going to be staying and make sure that actually being at the top of a mountain is really good. Probably great views, but you've got to cycle up there at the end of every ride you're there.
Yeah. This is super important. Another thing that's super important in this situation is if you want to max out your cycling holiday to the maximum, you max it out to the maximum. You might have to take into consideration that on the last day of your travel, it's usually a travel day. So if you still want to ride on your last day, you have to make sure that there's a really nice route somewhere that takes maximum 2.5 hours maybe from the place where you're staying, and you can go easily back. And in this situation, also Port Alcudia, via Port Pollenza, you can reach the lighthouse route, which is a very popular route, very, very scenic, and you can make it back in back and forth in 2.5 hours.
Do you know what? I've got this image in my head, right? I can just see him riding along the seafront. The lighthouse route sounds really romantic, all the rest of it. For some reason, I've got the idea of I'm just trying to think what theme tune music is going through my head.
I'm not naked on my bike.
No, but I have got in my mind that there is some...
naked?
Well, I know you always think of me naked on my bike.
No, in my mind, I know it sounds weird. I've got the idea of you riding down like that by the sea, with rollerbladers.
No, what's the music from Baywatch? Oh, with rollerbladers, this actually happened. So
they overtook you.
I didn't tell you. In Mallorca at the moment, what is super popular are these electric little scooters.
Yeah.
So and people use that to go to work and stuff. And I was really fighting against the wind because it was really windy when you go along the coast. And all of a sudden, this bloke on an electric scooter just tried to overtake me. And I was like, are you joking? Oh, yeah.
On your left?
Yeah, on your left. No, it's not that. I'd have let him by and drafted him.
I went. Yeah, I definitely, I went a bit faster.
Excellent. Well, look, Niels, I think it's time, whilst talking of things that are important on holidays, I think we need more beer. So are you all right to just grab us a couple of beers?
I will do that.
So whilst Niels is doing that, just to say, for those of you who listened to the early podcast that we did quite a lot of testing of non-alcoholic beer. We tried all sorts of different types. Some were good, some were bad. Listen back to hear what the best ones were. But we've recently started, and we are not sponsored, but recently started with Lucky Saint, and this is actually turned out to be quite nice.
I like it actually. The reason I like it gives you 0.5%.
It's half. Yeah.
And that's quite clear. Well, it's not massive, but it's quite clear. So I just like that. And we were trying to work out how many it would take to get your full percentage.
Your full amount. A lot. It takes a lot of effort.
I don't know anything about beer percentage. Absolutely nothing.
No, well, I tried to work it out the other day because I think it's roughly 1 pint of 4% beer, just to make the maths easy. So the idea would be, it would be 8 beers of these, but then that can't quite work like that, can it? Because it's not quite that simple.
He's actually gone to get the beer as well.
I know. What he doesn't realise is the beer's actually under the table, but he's gone off to go and get the beers. The beers are under the table, in a bag. Yeah.
No,
bottle openers over there.
It's fine.
No, we're not going to cut this, everybody. We're going to keep this going.
Where's he gone?
I know. I was like, did we say something? I was like, look, you only said that the scooter person was going to overtake him.
Oh, he's back here.
That's it. Right. So one beer between us then, mate.
No, okay. He's getting on.
He's getting another.
I love it that Michael is. I bring absolutely nothing to this podcast. Mike brings everything.
So good.
Thanks. I haven't finished my other one yet.
Me neither.
Right, there we go. So whilst we are sorting out the catering here, and we're talking about travel and holidays, I think it's the holiday thing that's got me wanting a second beer. Hang on, let's see if we can get this over for our listeners. Oh, that was a good one, wasn't it? Yeah.
I thought it sounded terrible.
Really?
It wasn't really very strong.
Oh, all right. Well, you could do better.
No, I can't. I think it's the beer rather than the opener.
Oh, that's very nice. But anyway, so we're talking about travelling around, being overtaken by people on rollerblades and stuff like that. But what did you do for travel to and from the apartment? Because obviously there's, particularly in some countries, the public transport system is much more efficient than ours. If you go to some countries, there's obviously places for bikes on the front of buses and stuff.
More interestingly, not that I don't care how you got to your apartment, but you didn't have your bikes with you. So what would you do if you did have your bike? Like say there's two, even if there's just two of you and you've got two massive bike boxes, how would you get those to the apartment?
These are really good questions because there is much more to it. It's not just the transportation on the island. It's also like from getting from your home to the airport. Yeah. And I think this is something that is really, really interesting or like super important to consider because there are multiple ways. Either you get a taxi to go to the airport, take public transport, or take your own car. And this depends a little bit on the time of the day. So where we are in the Chilterns in the morning, when you want to take a flight at like 7:30 or 8, it's really tricky to get with public transport to the airport.
I was actually going to offer them a lift, just totally forgot.
Yeah, so it is
evil.
It's tricky. But then when you go with your car, you have to think about where do you leave your car, and there are also multiple options. And a lot of people don't know that they are not just the official parking spots. You can also go on a website called, I think it's parking something, where you can find like private people renting out their car.
Oh, Just
parks.
Park.
Just Park, yeah,
it's really
out of
good,
the house.
yeah.
So that would work. However, if you are like us and we travel with our family now in this situation, and we knew it's going to be tricky, so we booked on a third-party page, and you just look for, as an example, London Gatwick Parking. You will get thousands of these. A meet and greet, which was really nice. So we drove basically to the terminal. Somebody took our car and drove off, and that was
sometimes you book one and you get the directions to the car parks. It's like Heathrow parking or something. You get directions and it is nowhere near Heathrow. And then you have to get a bus, which takes you approximately just as long as it's taken you to travel from home into the terminal. And the added time is just a lot, but it's cheap. So,
Same thing, particularly with Luton Airport for us. The Luton Airport, off-airport parking, oh my goodness, it's closer to my house than Luton Airport. I mean, it
also, you have to be mindful here, especially when you have your bike box with you. I had that before, that I wasn't allowed to take my bike
on the bus.
Onto the bus. I had to wait until the bus was basically until there were less people. which can really
delay,
it can cause some discomfort if you like really are in that time pressure.
Yeah. So I've got two tips for this. For the first one is I've used my local taxi firm, and they have like one token minibus, which isn't always being used, and so they just took me down and was able to put my bike box easily in there, and it was really, really cheap, really quick, very reliable. That was one way. The second way, slightly more cheeky, which is that you have obviously all the airports on you have the hotels on the big places, right? Mm-hmm. So I have previously taken my car to one of these big hotels and parked my car in the car park, and then when I've returned,
they washed it.
No, you go to reception. You have a look at what big conference is on, right? And you look at the list, and it might be, I don't know, it's a big company. I know, maybe
the conference of little people.
Yeah, it could be the little people conference, international conference.
What do you call it? Quite genuine. Like they would think he was going to be there.
Yeah,
but the little people.
Yeah,
cheeky bastards, both of you. Now, but what I would do, so you go along and you go up to reception and you say,
credible. Sorry, that's what I meant.
Credible.
You go up to reception,
Mr. Incredible.
And I said, I thought, okay, supposing it was Lidl. Let's go with Lidl. Again, we're not sponsored by Lidl.
Little people.
The little
Did you
people.
Like look up?
Yeah. What I did was I took my shoes off and put them on my knees and then knelt on them, right?
Anyways, crack on.
And I went up to the desk and I just simply said, I'm with the Lidl party. We've got to move the van round the back. Sue told us to come here and get a ticket to be able to get out the barrier. And the bloke just looked at me and just went, sure. And then just gave me a free ticket to get out of the car park. And
How did they not notice your car was there for the whole week?
Well, a lot of people's cars are there at a hotel car park for the whole week. The only time they care about it.
They only check you as you go out.
Yeah, they only check, you pay on exit. And that was about 80 quid, which we managed to get for free. Because my assumption is that there is somebody called Sue in authority everywhere. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
I spoke to Sue or James.
See, look, that's it. If you look, I spoke to Sue and she told me to come here and get it. And they will give it to you. I should have basically said, and she wants me to take the TV with me and get that serviced. Just take that. So, it's a bit of a risk, but that was that's my only contribution.
As a more legitimate way, sometimes if you're looking for parking, or if you were looking for a taxi and a taxi was going to cost you however much because it's 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning, sometimes it is cheaper just to stay overnight at the hotel and then you get your parking as well. Yeah, it's a more legitimate way to do it.
Yeah, that's also true. So
it doesn't involve any Sues.
But then saying that the meet and greet was not super cheap, not super expensive.
No.
It always depends on your circumstances, obviously, what is cheap or expensive. However, we paid about £55 for 5 days, which I thought was reasonable.
I think it's quite good.
And it was cheaper than taking a taxi, and it gave us a little bit of the, peace of mind. We will be there in time because we drive ourselves.
Do you know it costs that much to park in Wendover Woods for 5 days?
Oh, you see?
Did you know that?
Does it?
Yeah. I looked at the parking charges the other day. No,
crazy.
Astonishing.
So, anyways, to crack on with this, you have to think about that on the other hand as well, obviously, right? When you arrive at the airport, and there are multiple ways. Like I mentioned, I usually stay in Port Alcudia, which is in the north. It's about 45 to an hour drive if you would take your own car. So, and again, this depends absolutely on your situation. We've traveled as a family, so for us it was clear that we take a rental car. However, there's also a bus that drives every hour, and it costs you €9 and takes about 1.5 hours.
But then,
is this the one we have to stop at everyone else's hotel?
Yeah, you have to kind of like
it stops like 10 times roughly,
and sit with the general public.
But if you're ready for it, though, if you know you're going to do that, then
exactly. So this is not super expensive. If budget is the situation that you are in, where you want to keep your budget low, this is one situation. Another option would be take the bus. I think it's number 100, to take to Palma, and from Palma the normal line bus to Port Alcudia. Yeah. It's even cheaper. It's about £5-6.
Yeah, but you have to hang out with the general public as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, frowned upon.
Exactly.
Yeah, but you'd be saving money.
Another option is like to take a shuttle bus or a taxi And the shuttle really only makes sense if you go with a group of people where you want to share money.
Yeah.
Because then you end up with about 10, 15 pounds each. If you take a taxi, it's usually 75, 80 quid.
Yeah.
So I guess
per distance.
So that's a really good point, and I guess it does basically. The travel comes down to also economies of how many people are going. So a lot of people will be perhaps planning a bigger bike trip, and it sounds to me like that's definitely worth getting yourselves like a dedicated minibus, because it's like a tenner each kind of thing. And I'm guessing there's lots of services over there doing that and all set up. I have to say, if ever you go to Morzine, I can recommend Skeedy Gonzalez, who is the seriously the minibus.
This is actually you, right?
No, they're called Skeedy Gonzalez. They are absolutely brilliant, and they wear sombreros in the sort of whatever
in the winter. No, in the summer.
Yeah, no, in the winter. Well, all year round. Actually. When you land, what's the word? Like, arrivals. You're stood there trying to work out. Who is your person that you're supposed to go to who's got the minibus, and you've got these guys with these massive sombreros on. They are Skeedy Gonzalez, and they are brilliant. Yeah, but if they've got enough of you, I mean, these guys are set up. It's such a slick operation. They spend all day taking people up and down up and down. So they've got loads of room for your kit. That there is no situation you could probably throw at them that they haven't had before. So they are always got it under control. They planes getting delayed, being problems, they're great. But yeah, so I guess if you're going as a group that works, but then as a family you want to do a little bit of riding. Yeah,
so usually most of the time I go for the option to get a hire car, just because when I mentioned earlier, like a taxi is usually about 75 per distance, so you are at 150 pounds both ways.
Yeah.
Euros both ways, which is quite a lot, and usually for the same amount you can get a car. However, and here you have to listen really carefully, most of the rental companies they're scum. They're really, really bad, because they will try to get more and more money out of you. And it also depends on the situation, especially when you travel with little children. They will put you under pressure. This is just a normal thing. And I had a conversation with one lady once there, and she said, like, it is because they usually get a bonus for everything they pay. They sell you. I don't know if this is still the case. This is what I got told, and it would make sense. So as an example, there you have like two options really. So either you go with the more established companies like Avis, Hertz, whatever is Sixt, whatever is there, or you go with the more cheaper companies like Gold Car, OK Mobile, or whatever they're called, and the price basically reflects the stress factor that you will have. It is really, really bad. So as an example, if you go with a cheaper company and you say, okay, I have an excess of like 1,100 that I would have to pay if there's an accident, so they will cover usually everything that is above that.
Yeah.
Everything below will be deducted from your excess, which is like often like 1,100. And herefore, even if you have your own insurance, there's a lot of insurances out there. Like, for instance, Insurance for Car Hire is a company that gives you insurance for like a whole year for £30 that covers this excess. However, the downside is if you would have to pay it up front and they give it back to you. The downside is if you go to like these smaller companies, they will often tell you that they have new rules in place and they don't let you take your car out when you don't take an insurance with them. And we had this actually this time, which was really annoying. So the lady was insisting that we would not be able to take out a car without an insurance from them.
Oh, but you already had it.
Exactly. And the situation is, because they knew we had like little children, it's very unlikely of us to say like, you know what, I just walk out or walk off. Yeah. Because then often they say like, okay, you don't need to do it. So in this situation, I told her that I've been a customer for a long time. And then she negotiated us down and said like, look, you would have to pay for the child seats anyways. So if you take the insurance with us, therefore I give you the child seats for free. And that was then okay for me. Also, all of a sudden there was an airport tax. And this is also something you have to look up before you take your car. Every time you book a car, it's either the option in the terminal or shuttle. Never go for places where you have to go with a shuttle, because you will be there with your bike box potentially. you have to hop onto a shuttle. You go to a place half an hour away from the airport. You have to wait half a day until everybody is done, and then you can go. So most probably your riding day is done. Always go terminal. What they came up with now is that apparently there's an airport tax of 12% that you have to pay on top. Never heard anything about that. And they say like, yeah, it's during COVID they came up with it. It's like, obviously, right? So you have to be really mindful. If you go with the smaller rental car companies, make sure that you know what you bought yourself into.
Yeah.
So if you're the kind of person that's quite happy to be, or even enjoys complaining, fine, go, be more, go for it. But if you just want, look, I'm just not the kind of person who can even be bothered with all of that and having the fuss.
Go with a more expensive one.
Yeah, it might seem more expensive at first, but it's absolutely going to be worth it. Because in the longer run. Because
another thing that you have to take into consideration here, when you return your car, you have to go around your car, because I had that before, that I said like, it will be fine. And they said like, oh, there was a ding here, there was a ding here, there was a ding there. And I didn't have any proof because I was in a rush to the airport. So make sure that you know what your insurance covers. And
one quick tip for that is when you go to the car, as you getting in it, whilst the person's there, walk around and film the car on your phone.
Yeah, that's good.
Go around that.
That's a good
point. And then
point,
when you leave it, do exactly the same thing again. And obviously the phone will record the time, date and place and all the rest of it. So that can be a really quick way for you to be able to have any discussions afterwards. The other problem with that, of course, is if you go for a local company and you do have something you're not quite happy with, it's really hard to go back to them. Whereas if it is like a Hertz and Avis, a bigger company, at least you've got that opportunity.
One really
Do you know what? Can I just say, when we started this podcast just a few years ago, I never thought, I tell you what, I can't wait for the episode we start talking about car insurance.
Yeah.
Sorry for that. I never dreamed. I mean, we were talking about trying to get to interview Peter Sagan. And but here we are, car insurance and
honestly, it is
consumer advice.
If it just saves one listener's ass, this is so valuable because it can ruin their complete holiday. When you also another thing, and listeners, this might be like completely bizarre, and I don't know why, but if you pay with these smaller rental companies, if you pay on a credit card, you have to take exactly the same credit card, and the person who's driving the car has to be in the name of this credit card. Otherwise, you will pay another fine or fee, or like however they call it. So make sure your credit card has enough room on it to be used.
Yeah. Use
exactly the same credit card. Otherwise, you will be in trouble. Also, often they don't accept debit cards as well.
Right.
So also one more thing that I want to say: the coolest car, and Hannah always makes takes the Mickey out of me. I always go for the Citroen Berlingo. And
I like a Berlingo. It's good. It's highly rated, actually.
It's a perfect car, and this was me on a drunk night out with one of these rental car people. Somehow, he explained me that every rental company has a Citroen Berlingo or a Peugeot partner, and because they have to have it usually to store like a wheelchair and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But usually nobody really wants these cars.
No, they look awful.
So yes, but they're always new because nobody wants them. So if you go for a Citroen Berlingo or like a Peugeot Partner, this kind of model, the likelihood that you get a flash new car is really high.
And they have lots of space in if you need to put your bike boxes
for
in.
bikes. It's perfect.
Yeah.
You just look like a total...
Like a Berlingo.
You look like a
driver.
Well, look, at least it's not a Honda Jazz. Now, one quick question is, what are the things you did take? So, like you said, for that time, people need to think about pedals and stuff like that if you're going and maybe hiring a bike. Just double check, have they going to give you the pedals or not? But what about the other things? Because obviously when we jump out and go for a ride, you kind of, we've got everything at home, everything set up to get the bikes ready, and we've got all the stuff in our kit bags. And if it's good weather or bad weather, we've always got all our kit. But when you go to Mallorca, what would you advise people actually take with them? Yeah,
that's also a really good point, because especially Brits, I would say, like if you live on the island and you think of Mallorca, you think like, oh, I'm going into the heat. And what, like my top tips, if you go off season, so that means every time when it's not summer, bring a puffer jacket, because in the evening it can get a bit chilly. Bring arm warmers and leg warmers. Bring a ghillie. I think this is super important. Another thing that is completely underrated is bring a front and a rear light, because it happened to us that we got lost and it got dark, and you don't want to be on a foreign road without any light in the middle of nowhere where there's no street lamps and you don't have any light on you.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought about that actually.
Yeah. And as I mentioned earlier, track pump, super important. If you have hold luggage anyways, put a track pump in. If you go in a group, maybe that we have done that before. Most of us had just like cabin baggage, and we put money together to have one suitcase that we could give up
Put
together.
all that stuff in, yeah.
Okay, that's good. Good call, actually. Particularly if you're going as a group, one of you to take a track pump is actually going to save a whole lot of pain on the morning before you leave, and you're trying to make sure your tyres are all ready to go.
Yeah, you don't want to pump up your tyres with like a little hand pump, right? It's just like...
And I guess like the obvious stuff, obviously helmets, shoes, water bottles.
Yeah, water bottles.
You can't just take your little water bottle that you got from the supermarket. You need your thing to go in your bottle cage, don't you?
I've fallen foul with this time. I forgot my water bottle, so I had to buy one. And this was a bit annoying with this rental, because often you get water bottles for free and you just give them back. They wash them and use for somebody else.
COVID.
However, in this situation, I think it was outside of the season. They didn't have rental bottles there, so I had to buy one. It was not the end of the world. However, think about it. You can take
your own, because you can store stuff in there. You can put your socks in it or something.
Exactly.
Couldn't you? So it would in your luggage, so it would take up room.
So for a brief second there was going,
you were unsure what I meant.
I've never been on a ride and thought I need a second pair of socks.
No.
And then I realised what you meant. Sorry, that was me being really slow. Sorry, I know what you mean.
But you mentioned something about baggage, and this is also something really important that we should have maybe used at the beginning of the show. Which airline are you going to pick? And there are various airlines out there. I would say from the UK, the main ones that go to Mallorca, Ryanair, EasyJet and British Airways. And again, it comes down to what your budget is. However, you have to make your math right, because if you take British Airways, it might look a little bit more expensive than the other flights. However, you can take your bike as part of your hold luggage. So if you have an allowance of 23 kilograms, this can be your bike bag. And what I've done in the past, I just put the bike bag up with like clothes and stuff. Don't put your helmet in there, because you don't want to arrive, then your helmet is cracked. You don't want that.
Do you have to wear your helmet on board, like on the flight then?
So you can do that.
Just say yeah. I'm not
safety first.
I'm not a very safe flyer.
Well, there is a way out there. Most of the time, the airlines are relatively forgiving and say like, well, it's part of your clothing.
Yeah.
However, if you want,
it's part of my clothing.
If you want to avoid it,
on my head.
What I've done I mentioned earlier to bring a puffer jacket. What I've done, I put the helmet in a little string bag, attach it to the inside label of my jacket, and then throw the jacket over my arm, so nobody will question you what's in there.
And that's good smuggling. And where did you put your cocaine?
With my socks in my drink bottle. Yeah. No, but this might be a good tip, just to avoid unnecessary conversations. Yeah. If you go with EasyJet and Ryanair, the flight might be much cheaper, but you have to be mindful that they've changed their rules recently, where your suitcase, your onboard luggage is now has to be much smaller.
That's right. So they've reduced the size of your onboard luggage. So the way that most people used to walk around with those like little wheelie bags, normally a wheelie bag left hand, mobile phone right hand, talking on it, whisking themselves through the.
I'm left-handed the other way
around. Whisking their way through the airport. Of course, then Ryanair suddenly they're missing out on that, because everyone can pack
EasyJet as well.
And EasyJet, they're missing out on it because everyone can pack a week's worth of clothing in one of those things. So now they've reduced the size of this slightly, so that now you can basically take a big laptop bag or a rucksack or something.
So what they say is basically you have to be able to put it on the seat in front of you.
Yeah, under the seat. Yeah,
which is really annoying, because it is just not enough for you. So at British Airways, you don't have that. If you want to have like a bigger onboard luggage with you for EasyJet and Ryanair, you will most likely have to pay a little bit more extra, which then also brings the price up. Also, if you want to bring your bike on the plane, you have to pay an additional around, I'm not entirely sure, 60 to 75 euros per distance, which is another 150 euros you have to put on top, pounds you have to put on top of your flight price. So in this situation, it can be that British Airways might be cheaper.
Yeah. And I have to say, if you're going for a long weekend, therefore it sounds like that the cheapest or the most cost-effective option is to get a bike whilst you're out there, because then you can the quick things is you don't have to pay for taking your bike, you don't have to queue quite so much at faff, and it means that you can either get a bus or a taxi or any other option of transport at the other end. If you're going for a bit longer, it sounds like it then tips its way a little bit more towards, well, look, take your own bike. And if you do take your own bike, just, if you've got a longer holiday, you're willing to take a little bit more faff at the beginning and end, I guess, because you've got a little bit more time there. Yeah, this all makes sense.
Yeah, it certainly again depends a little bit on your circumstance and on your situation. For me, a rental bike is absolutely fine. Sometimes I just really enjoy to ride my bike somewhere else.
Yeah, and those nice roads.
So it really depends on the situation.
What about you, Jem? What would you do? Would you? I mean, you've not been away before, but would you rent or take your own?
When I went to Lanzarote, I did rent a bike, and I had a really nice Trek. Madone, probably, I think it was. It was nice. And Niels was reminding me, actually, because I had to haul it into the apartment. I was like, excuse me, everybody, let's bring this bike in for the evening. We did have enough room, actually. But yeah, I had to store the bike in the apartment. Not a major problem. I think there was a few stairs, but it was fine. And I did really enjoy riding it. It felt okay. I went out on a long ride when I was there. I also hired a mountain bike for the day. I'm less fussy about my mountain bike. I didn't have one at home. So yeah, I rented the bike when I was out there, but only maybe for a couple of days, so it's a bit different. And I found it really easy, and I enjoyed it, and I thought the bike quality was really good. I think I took my Garmin with me. I had my helmet and all my kit and everything, but I think they would have had all of that if I had needed it. Yeah. They were super friendly. Actually, this is not to do with taking a bike, but they had a guide as well. So we went off with, I'm sure loads of places have this, we went off with a guide, and it just happened because it was quite a quiet part of the season that on the mountain bike ride no one else turned up, and it was just me and him. It was really good. Although he went, I do remember this, off he went, cycled, and we're on our mountain bikes, and I'm not the most skilled. The first bit of terrain we had to tackle was the beach, and I don't think I'd ever ridden sand before, so I was like, right, off I go. Totally fell off, and my whole knee, I must have fallen not just on sand but on some scummy rocky bit.
Or like a little crab maybe.
He was just riding away, and I was like, oh my god. And then he turned round and I was on the floor, and he's like, you okay? I'm like, yeah, it's totally fine. And I was like, just started the ride, I'm never going to be able to. But he was really understanding. It was lovely. It was my first off-road ride.
You're like, no, I ride a lot. I do. I ride a lot. No, seriously,
but not on sand.
I hadn't really ridden off-road a lot, so it was a good experience. Yeah, I would, and I'd probably do it again. I love riding my bike, and I see the advantages, and I actually have a bike box. But I wouldn't be worried about hiring a bike abroad. There was and it was really easy to look up online to see what I wanted, the bikes that they had, and some of them are really good spec. So, or it might even be a similar bike to you've got at home.
Do you know what? I quite like the idea of trying a different bike, because I found myself. I think when you're spending your own money on a bike, you tend to be a bit more conservative. You kind of go for the a bike that you like, a brand that you trust, a one where it all just sets up nicely for you. We also you can go for a test ride, but most of the times when you go for a test ride on a bike, occasionally you get kind of a decent loop, but most of the time it's like a car park kind of riding up and down, does it fit kind of thing. It's not that thing. So I quite like the idea of hiring a bike and just trying a few different ones out,
Yeah, there's definitely two positive things to that. First of all, you can try something else out, as you mentioned, that you have never used before. I think this is a massive benefit. It can also be negative, right? I had a negative experience once. It was not so the bike brand, but it was the guys didn't give me a spare tube, and we had a puncture in the middle of nowhere, and also Hannah didn't have a spare tube, so we both didn't have a spare tube, and she then had to basically cycle home to get the car to rescue me. It was quite funny. It was in the middle of nowhere, and then all of a sudden this guy, Spanish people are so nice, this guy in his pickup thingy, like really like an old farm vehicle, like passed by, and he shouted something at me. I had no idea what he said. I just said yes, and he threw the bike on the back, put me in the car, and drove me to the next pub. So I was waiting there. That was super nice, and so that was really good. Also, one thing that's really important, it's a very positive thing as well, for when you hire your bike. If you're not super, how do you say, like mechanically skilled, you have to make sure, especially when you arrive there, that you do certain safety checks. I had that before, that when I did the half Ironman, during the race, somebody next to me crashed because his whole headset turned 90 degrees to the left. So you have to make sure, if you put your bike apart to put it in the bike box, that you are able to put it back together.
Oh, I see what you mean. Sorry, I thought you meant with a hire bike. You mean your own bikes? Check your own bikes.
Yeah, check your own bikes. You have to be able to put because most of the time, if you put it in the bike box, you don't even need to touch your handlebars, but in most of them, you might have to loosen the screws, turn it around, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
One quick tip for that, because I've done this a few times, is get some masking tape. Put the masking tape on the contact point. So, for example, across the stem and the handlebar, for example, put it on there, and then use a Stanley knife and just cut the tape at the right spot.
Nice.
And then when you put your bike back together, you just need to line up the bits of tape.
Oh, I've got it. Okay.
Or alternatively, you just use a pencil. It's the only reason I say to use the tape, was the pencil's really hard to see the pencil line. But it's just a really good quick top tip. But it just means that when you put your bike back together, it's dead easy to get it all back in exactly.
Yeah, I think that's what I'd be worried about. And it's extra time that you've got when you get to wherever you're going. You just can't just get out and ride your bike. Yeah. You've got to put it all together. You can just leave extra time to do that, really.
Although for me, I have to say, one of my most favourite parts is actually taking the bike apart and putting it back together. So
I can imagine you love that sort of stuff.
I'm over the moon. I'm sort of like wandering around offering to put other people's bikes together.
You can do mine anytime.
So good.
Not a fan at all.
But there we go.
It was a really positive experience. I know that you guys went away because you wanted a break for the family, which is brilliant, and you did manage to get in some riding time, which was also excellent. But overall it was positive. You enjoyed it. There were great things about it, and it just made your holiday.
Oh, there's just something really nice to ride your bike in warm conditions somewhere else. It is just really nice.
We saw the videos actually, and you did look super happy.
Yeah. And I think
we were it was absolutely hacking it down. It was such bad weather, and then you would send that through, and I was like,
I saw you had your front bag thing as well,
like a little bag.
You just took it with you, so you had all your stuff in it. Yeah.
And just the camera, actually.
Oh, so. Just the camera to film yourself.
Yeah. I think one thing that is super important, I think what I realized for us, or what we realized for us as a young family now, so we have like 2 toddlers, like 1 baby, 1 toddler. And that doesn't mean you can't ride your bike. You just have to make sure to ride at the right times. And I think especially when your partner has a similar interest, is to make sure that both of you get something out of it, if that makes sense. So what we did when the kids went sleeping in the morning, for instance, I went for a ride. Then on the other day it was Harry's birthday, so we deliberately booked a place in a restaurant in a different town. So I drove there and Hannah cycled there, and we just met there.
That's really good. I think of ways of doing it that aren't really interrupting your family time.
Exactly.
And it may not be that you're out on the bike all day on a massive sightseeing tour. You're just grabbing bits of time, but that you wouldn't have ordinarily done if you're at home because the weather's rubbish and you don't have time. So just really making the most of it, like let's get bikes and use them when we can, even if we can't go out for a really long time.
Exactly. And also like making it fun for the kids. So as an example, when Hannah cycled, I explained to the kids, like, look, we have to go and catch Mummy. So basically we drove up to her, and then Millie was shouting out of the window like, "Go, Mummy, go!" And then we drove further.
Did you give her like a hand up?
But it was really fun, and I think this is super important.
Sticky bottle.
Don't be ignorant. If it's a family holiday, make sure your whole family is enjoying it, and you don't just say like, okay, bye then.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
I'm off for the whole day.
So
See you later.
I mean, my kid's a bit older, and we've had the situation where we want them to stay up a lot later in the evenings because it's much more fun on holidays. But you don't want them to then be like really overtired and mental. So we would often have a little bit of a siesta, and again, that was a great window for us to do the similar sort of thing.
Oh, there's a couple of things that I would like to mention. Also, when you rent your car, just to go back to this.
Here we go, everybody. He's still on the
Belingo.
he's going to start ranting.
No, just because we didn't know that. For me, it was not a problem because I have a German driver's license. However, I booked the car with a British passport. They wanted to see an international driver's license. I didn't need to have this, but for all of you that don't know, since we have left the EU, you will have to have an international driver's license if you want to hire
someone. Do you have to get a permit thing from the post office?
Yes, costs like £5. You get it, and you get it at the post office. Super simple. I think it's just something worth mentioning.
Do you know what? That is a good thing because I think good top tip because that's the kind of thing you don't think about until you actually stood in the queue.
Yeah.
And go,
and you can't get your hire car. Can't get you Belingo.
No.
Another thing that is super interesting is like for your food. Sometimes it's really, really good if you just go to a local restaurant to support local, and often they also don't break the bank. You always think like, oh my goodness, it's super expensive. It's not. Our favorite restaurant in Porto Alcudia, as an example, we always refer to it as a €5 place. It's now a €7 place, but it's basically everything there costs like €7.
That's good.
Just do some research, and the food is usually everywhere really, really good. So you don't have to worry about that. And then in some of the cheapest places with the best evenings, if that makes sense. So that was really good. And
I'm a bit jealous.
Yeah. I know, I'm really jealous now.
I kind of like, I was like, right, this is a great episode. Yeah, we're going to talk about bikes. And at the end of it, I'm like, I want to go on holiday.
I know. Well, I mean, that's it. I'm like, well, when am I going to go? Well, I have got a small visit planned. I think someone's organised it, which is really good of them. Thank you, Mark. I think we're going to Mallorca.
15 of us.
15 of us. Are we going to Mallorca?
Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah. So I'm going to go.
We didn't tell Gemma about it.
Is it lads?
Yeah. 100%. It's lads. It's going to be great. We're going to be smashing it every night.
No.
95% of the people are Brits, so it will be less, I think.
No. It will spend most of the morning arguing about where we can find an English breakfast.
Yeah. Then where you're going to go. Yeah. Who can ride slow and who can ride fast.
Yeah, getting the three different groups.
I know what it's like riding.
Someone else is going to ride about 100 metres and get flat. And then we're going to have somebody else is going to ride 100 metres and pull a hamstring. It's going to be proper like old men riding. We're going to spend more time fixing bikes and each other than actual stuff.
I have one more thing that just came to my mind because I think it's really valuable because some of the listeners might ask, but how do I know actually where to ride to? And what I've done as an example, I just, in this case, there's multiple navigation apps I think out there. I just happened to use Komoot, and in this situation I searched on Google for Komoot best rides 30 kilometer from Alcudia, and I got a selection, and I looked like which rides would actually be suitable, put them on my phone, put headphones in. However, I just put one on the right hand side because you ride on the right, so it is not distracting me from listening to the traffic. And then every now and then you would just have a voice, now turn right.
Oh, that's good.
Now go straight. Okay. And this is actually really good because you don't have to look at your computer the whole time. Yeah. You can take in
the scenery,
yes.
Oh, yeah.
So, can you change the voice?
I don't know.
I feel like if I'm in Spain,
you want a Spanish person.
I want a Spanish accent. I want now turn right.
Do you remember everyone used to change their voices on their sat nav in the car?
Yeah, I remember apparently there's one that was.
Wasn't there? What's the guy from Austin Powers?
Was there?
Yeah, and
Dr. Evil?
Yes, yeah, you could change it to that.
Oh, that'd be good.
I'm sure you could.
I remember there being an Ozzy Osbourne one.
Yes,
which apparently, if you took the wrong turning, would start properly swearing at you to turn them round.
Well, to be fair, like this Komoot guy was also swearing at me. Turn right, U-turn. 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 Like, but I can't.
Oncoming traffic.
Actually, talking of exercise apps that shout at you, have you heard of the Zombie app for running.
No. Why would we talk about running?
No. It's just about the. Well, no, I'm sure it would work on a bike as well. The idea is it takes you through an exercise like of now warm up and now run this and now do this, and then suddenly there is a zombie behind you. Run!
Really?
You have to peg it, and the idea is that you're being chased by a zombie.
Now do the hokey pokey.
Yes. Now you have defeated the zombie. Victory dance. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway. Right, so
is there anything else you want to know? Like.
No.
Oh, that's good. I think we covered everything, right?
Actually, no. How would you rate the Citroen Berlingo on a scale of 1 to 5?
I was about to buy one here.
No way.
Yeah, and then Hannah said, like, no, get out. Like, either the Berlingo or me. I said, like, the Berlingo.
Was this your way of trading up to the VW transporter?
Was it a sneaky thing?
Was that the kind of like, well, if I don't get the really nice car, I'll get a Berlingo? Is that the plan?
I said, basically, look, I'm turning, like last year, I said, I'm turning 40, so either I get a Porsche.
A younger woman.
A VW transporter or a Berlingo. And Hannah's
and
like...
that doesn't really give Hannah any option apart from the option that you want. Clever.
Yeah.
I like it. So there were options, but
no one was ever going to go for them.
Yeah, so I actually really like it because nobody expects you to go fast. You know,
are we talking about the transporter or the Berlingo?
The Berlingo.
Oh, okay.
So when you drive in Mallorca and you don't know where you are,
we've already established that.
Nobody expects you to drive fast. Nobody at this table expects you to drive fast, mate.
Another good thing, I think, for Mallorca.
Can I just check when you said? I'm not sure if we got this clear, right? You know, you said you got overtaken by the guy on the scooter. Can I just check? Were you in the Berlingo or on the bike?
On the bike, and he was wearing a suit.
Yeah.
He was going to work.
He said hello.
And Niels is doing his FTP test.
You're not funny.
I'm genuinely pleased that you and Hannah and the kids had a really good time, and it was lovely to come round this evening and see, you know, you've been away and chat about it and and I know it was kind of a last minute thing as well, and we were all shocked. I think I saw you at the supermarket and you said, oh, by the way, we're going away on Wednesday, and I was like, oh, really?
Yeah. And I only found out on that day.
Yeah, so I'm really pleased, and it was really it was a great thing to do. Bikes or no bikes, you know, it was lovely to just get away. It sounds like it was lovely to get away, get some sun or some warmer weather, not always sunny, and just have a change of scenery and use that time to ride bikes as well that you may not have already done if you were here, because you get blown off them. Yeah,
I think what is really important as a takeaway, it really depends on your circumstances, how cheap or how expensive you want to make it, right? And if you want to go riding abroad, which I can highly encourage you to do so, I always come back and make a ton of friends, right? And it's super fun, and it doesn't break the bank. If you think about it, you can get a flight out and back about £100. You can get a bike there if you want for around £100. You can go from the airport to the destination and back for about £20. And then depending on how many of you go, you can make the apartment also really, really cheap.
Yeah, you know me, I'm always like thinking of ways to inspire people to ride their bikes, either to get on them if they've never ridden a bike before, maybe this is not the best option, or just to kind of spark their enthusiasm again. And I guess if you've been having a bit of a long winter and the weather's been naff over here, and we can ride outside and we can have some really lovely days, but do you think it's just kind of sparked your enthusiasm again, like, oh, I'm going to get back to it now? And it might not be back to it like training, but just, I'm going to go back and I'm going to I'm excited to ride my bike again.
It definitely did something to me like that, because with both of our babies, like Harry was born last year in February, and the last year with like a toddler and a baby, it was not always easy, just from like getting sleep in and stuff. So I lost a little bit my mojo, if I'm 100% honest. And now, just having been out, riding in nice conditions on a nice bike, it felt great.
Yeah, and that's really good as well, Niels, because I think for a lot of people, including myself, you know, the idea of going on a holiday and going away just fills me with so much faff and tricky, you know, how am I going to get there? And, you know, we're a little bit out of practice for it. And and just the timing of it. And it's easier to think, okay, no, I won't go because I can build up all these barriers. But actually, if you take the time to do it, it can be some of the best times away, particularly for all of us where we've had to be a little bit stuck at home for a little bit longer. So, Niels, it's been really good to hear and get a little bit inspired. Do you know what? I don't know about you, Jim. I feel a little bit inspired by.
I feel a bit inspired. Yeah. I'm trying not to look out the window at the weather.
No, absolutely, exactly.
To keep that inspiration up.
No,
I do. I'm really pleased for you, and I think you've inspired us as well a little bit.
Yeah.
Also, one last thing to finish this all off. Some listeners might be concerned about the COVID regulations. It's super easy, really. There's usually on both sides, if you go to Spain and if you come back, a passenger locator form which you have to fill out, just writing a little bit about you, where you have been in the last 7 days, if you are vaccinated or not. That's it. You show it on the other end. You show your vaccination. That's it.
Really quick.
I think it's been quite nice that it's important to cover that, but that we haven't. It's been quite nice that we haven't had to talk about that actually, because it's kind of sorted now. And whatever situation you're in, the COVID stuff is really clear.
Yeah.
So yes, you've got to take the time to look at it, but it's super clear now. Whereas maybe 6 months, a year ago, it just wasn't as clear, and it was really tricky. And it's just nice that actually we've covered it off in a minute.
That was super quick, I have to say. And just on the board, on the plane, we had to wear masks. That was it, really.
Yeah.
And
The boat.
The boat.
Got a boat there.
Well, look. Thank you so much, Niels. And a little bit of inspiration, education, and hopefully a bit of entertainment for people as well, which is what we always aspire to on the Veloccino Cycling Podcast. And I don't know about you, Jem, but now I'm going to start thinking about creating new stories that have not yet been written. I'm thinking about where I'm going to ride them somewhere other than the UK. Yeah. It's going to go home, get my laptop out, start looking at different destinations to go and cycle, along with obviously the options list on a Citroen Berlingo. And on that
honestly,
bombshell,
it's amazing. It's beautiful.
Indeed. And actually, coming back to cars, I think we can actually finish this with, and on that bombshell.
Yes.
It's time for us to end. So take care, everybody, because we're off out to search for Citroen Berlingos and book holidays in the sun, because the best stories have not yet been written.
I don't know why I did this.
We've got a button for that.
We've got a button.
Press the button. Press the
okay.
button.